once in a while, we encounter a crisis of identity. And if you're like me, you've asked yourself, maybe once, twice, thrice, who am I? What am I doing? And why? Now, my name is Patricia Jean Wangeshi Kihoro, but many people know me by different names. They identify me by different things. But the one I'm going to speak about today is Britannia Zimeisha. Anybody recognize that name? Yes. Cool. So how many of you have watched the Just a Band video for Hahe, otherwise known as Makmende Amerudi? Makmende Amerudi. So in this video, Makmende, who is played by Kevin K1 Minor, he is on a mission to rescue his entanglement. And her name is Britannia Zimeisha, played by me. So this dude is like cool, he's no nonsense, he doesn't like, watching him a YouTube video, hayuko TikTok, he just does his thing. So he's walking around and he's mad all the time at everything and everyone. So this chick has been kidnapped and he's going around trying to rescue her. So he encounters different people, he's fighting them, Taste of Danger, Black Sahara, Wrong Number. These are people that he's just beating up and he's like, where's she? And then he finally finds Britannia Zimeisha, who has been kidnapped by the Ask Your Mother militants. Makmende just shows up, somehow, it is English. And he stands in front of the car and he's like, stop. And then they come out of the car and he beats them all up and then rescues Britannia. This was a really amazing video. It was the first Kenyan viral video, like the first one that was watched all over the world. And all these characters, all these people, they made such an impact. And Britannia Zimeisha is a character that remained with me. Like a lot of people will see me and be like, hey, Britannia, Britannia, Britannia. But for the last few years, I have felt like Britannia Zimeisha. Like I am depleted. I have no biscuits. The biscuits are finished. The bread is over. The cookies, nothing. Ata unga, hakuna. It's just been like, wait, what am I doing? Who am I? There's been nothing to draw from. And it's been something that has been such a defining factor of who I've been for the last 3 years. So let's take it back to right before the pandemic. I think this was the busiest time of my career. And I was having a good time. So I was acting, I was singing, I was emceeing, I was moderating events, I was hosting a radio show called Afro Central that played exclusively contemporary African music and eventually mostly Kenyan music. It was a show where people would come to discover new artists. I was creating content on social media, Instagram. I had a YouTube channel where I was enjoying creating content on YouTube. I was hosting and curating an event called Speakerbox, where the artists I would play on my show would then have a place to perform physically, but also we'd have speaker sessions with innovators, cultural trailblazers, we'd have open mic. I was really just doing a lot of things. I was very busy. And I didn't feel like I was busy, but I was doing a lot. Kind of like a pickup truck. Unajua pickup? Imebeba vitu mingi, it's full of things, and it relies on momentum to keep going. But there's a lot that is rattling, some sounds here and there, some smoke here and there, some steam here and there. Sijui, this is not working. AC, what is that? The seats are just like shaking. I was doing a lot, but because of the momentum, it felt like I was okay. But deep down, I felt like there was something wrong with me, something broken. But because I kept myself busy, and because the momentum kept me going, I was like, oh, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I feel, as long as I'm doing this, and I enjoy this, and people can see that I'm enjoying it, and people are feeling it, then everything is good. Then the pandemic happens. And this pickup, which I would imagine is the one that was delivering the Britannias, to whoever it needs to get to, it had to stop. I didn't leave my house for 2 months after the lockdown was announced. 2 months. And by that, I mean, I didn't even leave the house to take the trash out. I didn't open my door to leave. When things started to pick up again, the pickup truck, which had been parked and had never shown any signs of being in trouble, needed to start again, right? So we go back to start the pickup truck again. It had a bit of a struggle, but it started. And then it started to move. So things are opening up again. I have this business opportunity, and I'm excited. 2020, as much as there was a lockdown, it felt like a lot of things shifted to the digital space. So I was working a lot, and I was embarking on new frontiers with business and life. And unfortunately, the momentum that I had built up before the pandemic, it wasn't enough, or there wasn't enough time to build up that momentum again in 2020, especially because things were different. So as much as the pickup started, it wasn't moving as fast. And when you have an old car that has so many cracks, leaks, all these things, if it was being kept together because of momentum, if the momentum is not the same, eventually it's going to break down, right? It went slowly, and then it just did. So if you think of like cartoons, you know how everything just falls apart? It felt like that's what happened. So this was the beginning of 2021 for me. Everything just fell apart. It didn't matter that I just won a grant from the YouTube Black Voices Fund. I just got a new job hosting a new TV show on DSTV. Things were looking up, but I was falling apart. When I fell apart, as much as I was trying to keep things together, I knew that, okay, something needs to change. I need to seek help because everything that I've been doing to keep things together up until this point, it's not working. So I called a friend of mine. His name is Silas. He'd been tweeting and sharing a lot of information about things that really resonated with me. He was living in a country that had resources where he could seek treatment for things that I had never considered that I could have. I'd suspected one thing, but what he was sharing, I was like, but I've never heard of this. And so when I felt like I couldn't even move forward, he's the first person that I called. And so we talked, and he recommended a therapist, he recommended a psychiatrist, and the next day I got in touch, and I went for my first ever professional assessment. Now, I studied psychology in university, so I felt like I already knew things, mi najua, si nimesoma, niko na degree. And I go in and have this appointment, and I got an official diagnosis of something I had suspected, but I was just like, but no. What I know about this It doesn't quite track. And people have been saying that nowadays you go onto Twitter, TikTok, and you're diagnosed with something. You know, there's so much information about so many different things that now, oh, you read books as a child, oh, you have this. Oh, you you craved salt as a child and you stole it, oh, you have this condition, you know? So everybody is talking about, don't let the internet fool you into thinking that you have a condition. But I went to this therapist, psychiatrist actually, and got an assessment done. And she said, oh, it's so clear. You are so typical. Yani, it is instant. I can see it in you. You have ADHD. So I had suspected over the years that I had ADHD because I struggled to like focus, you know, and then it's like really hard to like sit down and respond to emails. You know, like if I have something important to do, let me tell you, the best way to get my dishes done is to sit down and say, okay, I need to edit this video. I will do the dishes. I will do the laundry. I will clean the carpets. I will even clean the curtain boxes on top, you know? Because the distraction is real. But then she said to me, you have ADHD, and it's so clear. Now, the name ADHD in itself, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, is such a disservice to what it is. Because it's really, I feel like it really minimizes what it is. It's not about being hyperactive, running around, and it's not about not just being able to focus. There's so much more that comes with it. Dysregulation of attention, emotions, executive dysfunction. There's a lot of terms, by the way, and I'll explain what they are. But I remember the first thing I felt was relief, and then grief, a sadness of, so if this is the thing that has been making me feel like I am broken for as long as I can remember, but there was a name for it anyway, how different could my life have been if we'd have just known what it was from the beginning? And then I started to feel anger. So let's take it back even further, way beyond the pandemic, back to my childhood. The thing about mental health or a difference in neurological development is that, one, living in an African country, we've always only had information and research that was done on Caucasian children, Caucasian boys. So what we saw in the media about ADHD, it's about little boys running around just hyperactive. So nobody ever considered that girls could be going through the same thing, right? And with time and research, it's been found that as much as it's externally presenting for boys, it's internal for girls. So how does it present? Jason, my friend, you're a beekeeper. If we're approaching a beehive, what we see outside, kwanza umeipiga rangi, okay, honey. We look at it and it just sounds like, just a nice hum. But the closer we get, and if we look inside, we'll find bees buzzing, crossing, just lots of bees moving around, right? That's what it's like in the brain of a young girl who has ADHD. But because of how society socializes us, we are told, as a girl, you're supposed to do this or do this. Oh, you're supposed to sit like this. Oh, don't make too much noise. Oh, boys will be boys, but girls are supposed to be like this, right? So we learn from a very young age to unconsciously start masking parts of ourselves. And what happens is we become very hyper vigilant to how people respond to us. So if we do something and people don't like it, we mask it. It's not a conscious thing. We just know that, okay, I'm not supposed to do that, so let me cover that up. You grow up, another thing that you do that people don't respond to too well, you cover that up. And because there's no language to describe what it is that you're feeling, you just learn to cover up parts of yourself because you feel like who you are is broken, is wrong, and will be punished. So you hear words like, oh, you're too much. Okay, let me mask that. Oh, you're so loud. Okay, let me mask that. Why are you like that? Okay, let me mask that. You don't know you're doing it. You just think that that's how human beings learn to be human beings. But a lot of girls with ADHD grow up to be women with ADHD. And women with ADHD, a lot of times, are tired, exhausted, burnt out. And they also still feel like there's something wrong with who I am. I grew up feeling like I was too much, but also feeling like my brain is not keeping quiet. So because I excelled in certain things, of course, it doesn't seem like I am lacking in others, right? And you're not going to think, oh, no, she has a mental condition, because she's doing well. She's doing well, she's getting good grades, but she's learning to just cater to everybody else in her life. And that's where the people-pleasing comes in. So you do well. I remember I just knew I have to do well. I have to get 600 plus in KCPE. I think I got 590, Mom, do you remember? Yeah, I got 590, which was a pretty good score, but I remember being so disappointed in myself that I wanted to repeat class 8. I was like, I failed you. Because there were standards that I was also attaching to myself. Like, this is what it means to be good. This is what it means to be a good friend, to be a good student, to be a good child. And so I hyper-focused on the negative comments. So it didn't matter if people are like, oh, wow, you did so good. If one person says, you could have done better, I'm a failure. I went into high school. I remember being bullied because I was kind of just strange. Even in primary school, my best friend, Faith, she left the country, and after she left, because we were so close, after she went, everybody was like, oh, sasa umebaki. You guys thought you were so cool. Now you're here by yourself. I was bullied. And so I just believed there's something deeply wrong with me. But there's no language as a child to express that. And so as you grow, if you're naturally good at some things, but you've been taught that you have to work really hard to be good at things, that's where the imposter syndrome comes in as well. So I like to sing. I'm being chosen to sing at these choirs. In high school, I'm being chosen for this club, but I haven't worked hard at it. But somehow I'm good enough. So I feel like, I must be a fraud, because other people are working really hard. Nimedanganya watu hapa. So many things are happening, like layers are just adding on to this thing that you don't even know is happening to your brain. And because you're constantly looking out for the negative bias, you're constantly looking to confirm that there's something wrong with you. It doesn't matter anything good that you do, one small comment or one small action, you will choose that thing and use it to confirm and convince yourself that you're not good enough. I've never shared this with my mom, but I remember when I was in high school, I really wanted to study music. Like, I was so convinced, like, I want to be a singer and I want to go to Berklee School of Music. And our high school, they needed, like, the sciences. Choose the sciences because we have to keep our aggregate high. Because I was so good, not so good, but I was I was doing well in biology, in physics, in chemistry, and those clusters didn't go well with the arts. I called my mom and I was like, Mom, please come to school. Please come convince Mrs. Mburu that I just need to do music. My mom came to the school. I was so convinced that after she leaves, they let me do music. But afterwards, my mom is like, Wangeshi, you should just do physics. Just do. And I was like, wait, what? What's going on? Music has always been the plan. I've been singing since I can remember. I've been asking to sing at your friends' weddings. I've been wanting to sing all this time. What changed? And she's like, oh, just, the sciences. I don't even remember what her explanation was. And I'm sure the teachers were just like, it's marketable, music. In Kenya, musicians are struggling, it's just not good. But what stuck with me was, so I must not be that great a singer or that great at music that you would be willing to take a chance to let me do music as I want to. I went to university in Eldoret. I studied psychology. I attended 2% of the classes, as one of my lecturers said, because I was always coming back to Nairobi to be in a studio singing or acting, because my creativity and my creative side still thrived, and I still wanted to explore that creative side of myself. And then with time, friends who were like, oh, you should enter this music competition. It's called Project Fame. Do it. I was like, me, easy reality shows, Yezani. But then I did it because my friend was like, if you don't go, we'll stop being friends. So I do this reality show. I don't think I'm that great of a singer because, in high school, they didn't think I was that great of a singer for me to do music. But I do it anyway, and I say, let me just do it. Hopefully, I get to stage 1 or 2. I ended up in the finals, right? And then after that, opportunities would come here and there, but I kept working hard for them. I want to act, I go for auditions. I want to sing, I look for gigs. I want to be on radio, I look for radio gigs. And I felt like anything that doesn't work out, let me just go with the flow. But the thing that kept happening was if somebody makes a small comment that is on the negative side or that I perceive to be negative, it would make a huge impact in my life. A friend of mine said something about my voice when we were recording a jingle. And I was like, oh my goodness. So my friends have been lying to me all this time. Was I that chick who went to TPF just to be laughed at? And I kind of convinced myself that anything that I believe about myself to be good, I'm living in a mirage. Any negative comment is the truth, because I had a negative bias towards myself. And this was led by this thing that I thought was really deeply wrong and broken about me. And it started to affect my friendships, my relationships. As much as anything that I wanted to do, I would deep dive, I would go down a rabbit hole and figure out how to do it well. But then if somebody said one small thing, or if somebody did a campaign with me but never came back for it, I would just say, okay, it means they didn't like it, they weren't happy. If somebody delayed in paying me for something that I did with them, I'm like, oh, they don't think I'm worth the money. It's almost like I was looking for any negative thing to confirm or validate the negativity that I believed in myself. And even with my friends, it didn't matter if somebody said they loved me or that they wanted me in their life. I didn't know how to handle conflict. So if there was one small tumekosana hivi, okay, this person didn't want me in their life, let me just take myself out. And this took a huge toll. So back to 2021, when I've gone to see this psychiatrist and they give me this diagnosis of ADHD, and I start to do a deep dive, hyper-focus, And I'm just like, oh, I need to learn everything I need to know about this thing. And it turns out it's not just about not being focused or attentive. It's a dysregulation of attention, of emotions. I learned terms like executive function, which I would say, when you sit down and you have your tasks for the day and you know, okay, number 1, I'll do this, then number 2, I'll do this, 3, 4. In my mind, everything is number 1. Think of an office and you have a secretary. And the secretary will handle all the appointments. Okay, you've come. Okay, cool. You're going in after 5 minutes. And then after 10, this one. For me, there's no secretary. So everybody comes in at the same time. And I believe I can handle them all at the same time. So you have a list of things that you need to do. You're trying to handle them all at the same time. At the end of the day, you're exhausted, but you haven't completed anything, right? It was interesting to figure these things out because as I was learning more, I was understanding more about myself. But then it still kind of made me feel, so there's something broken and I know now what it's called. And I don't know how to fix it. Yes, there's medication. And I started that medication journey. And initially it was like, okay, maybe I can focus now. I can respond to 3 emails, then 4, and edit a video, and post this. But then things started getting harder as well. And I was like, wait, am I not supposed to be getting better? But the more I read, I started to learn that, okay, so this masking that you've been doing, the medication is helping you to unmask these traits that you've been hiding, these traits that you've been feeling like, okay, you don't belong, or you can't be this, or you can't be that, because you're too much here, or you're too much there. So as the medication unmasks that, you find out that there's other things that you're dealing with. But the more you learn about these things, the more you start to recognize them in other people, but you're not going to walk up to a person and say, have you considered? But you're going to be able to handle with more grace, right? So as I did a deep dive and I understood these things about myself, and I started to unmask all the things that I had hidden about who I truly am, unconsciously, it was a very painful experience because if people around you are used to you being a people pleaser, because that's a very common thing, you're always hypervigilant about how people are feeling and trying to accommodate them. Because if you're the broken one and everybody else is fine, then you have to try and be like them, right? Even though you don't know that that's what you're doing. When you start to unmask that and to reveal who you truly are, it can be difficult for the people around you to accept. Because suddenly you are speaking about your boundaries, you're sharing about what your needs are, and if people are used to, but you've always been so cool, why are you being difficult? But you've always been like easy. Why are you asking for this? Then friendships fall by the wayside. If you've been the person who is attentive to everybody but yourself, when you walk away, not because you're like, I don't need you in my life, but more like, I think you're better off without me because I'm the thorn in your side. It can be very traumatic. And so that's what the last few years have felt like. My Britannias were over. I didn't know why. And when I finally found out, I was like, the Britannias are not over because I'm not capable. It's because I didn't know that I was actually the baker. Ni mimi natengeneza Britannia. I'm not the pickup that is faulty. I'm not the stockist. I'm actually the person who creates them. Because if you think about, oh, you do this and you do that, I think Dawn described me as a multi-hyphenate. I want to add another layer to that and describe it as a multi-potentialite. There's potential in anything I have interest in, which is a very ADHD thing. I can be a singer today, tomorrow, nimependa motorcycle, I can be a boda boda guy. And that's happened because when I bought my scooter and I had the yellow vest, stuck in traffic, somebody jumped on the scooter and asked, "Town gapi?" And I was like, "Hey, boss." So I went and bought like pink harness so that you just like see, oh, it's a girl. But the thing is, this neurodiverse ecosystem that we live in, it's just that the world is so optimized to people who operate in a certain way. You wake up early, you go to work or you go to school, you finish at a certain time, you come home, you rest. But as adults, we know that there's some people who are night owls, right? There's some people who you'll start to switch on at like 3 in the afternoon. Or you work better at this time, or you don't do well with meetings. But somehow we expect children to be 9 to 5s. You wake up early, you go to school, you sit in class, and then you come home in the evening. So if you're starting to mold children from that age without considering that they may have different ways of operating in the world, different ways of learning, different ways of understanding, different ways of thriving, don't you think that maybe, possibly, we could be traumatizing children who are perfectly fine, they just work different? And so what I've come to today, where I'm at, because on YouTube, I think I've come back so many times. Hey guys, I'm back. That I've even been called, hey, I'm Patricia, I'm back, Kihoro. It's because I wasn't really in tune with who I truly am. I was always masking something. And it was not a conscious thing. I just didn't know that I could be who I truly was. I didn't have the language to express that, I think I'm different, not broken, but I think this is how I operate. And so many people are trying to fit into a world that is optimized for a certain type of brain, but there's so many other brains to consider. This explains a lot of addiction issues. This explains a lot of, oh, you're just lazy. Why don't you focus? Why are you doing this? And then next year it's this, and then in a month it's this. It's just that our brains work different. And I think last year, which I call the unraveling, because I had to strip down. My ego was put aside. Who I thought I was put aside. After stripping all of that, facing who I really am, without any judgment, with grace and compassion and love, and seeing that, oh, the person that you've been masking and hiding actually is needed and is seen. I feel like this is the time that I will come back, and I will come back for good, because I'm coming back to myself. Not to anybody's validation of who I am, not to anybody's vision of who I should be, but of who I truly am. And if I can see myself, if I can accept myself, and if I can love myself, the person who people say, oh, you're too much. Oh, To the point where I couldn't even accept praise. Oh, we love your YouTube. You did this, and I'm like, hey. Now I have to come back and pretend that I worked hard and I know how I did that. No. And a lot of people are dealing with not understanding who they are, or thinking that, I don't have the language, but I'm just wrong. There's something wrong with me and I don't know what to do about it. It's to say, self-awareness is key. The internet has given us a gift. What it did for me was give me enough information to seek a professional diagnosis, to go and advocate for myself. And nowadays, when I have conversations with people and they say, oh, I really relate to that, or I feel like, I've gone through that, I'm like, okay, cool. So this information is worthwhile. And I would love for anybody who is now on their parenting journey and they're thinking their kids are just like, I don't understand them. Why are they doing this? They're not doing this. Maybe consider that the world has been optimized for brains that conform to societal norms, but there are other brains that have helped us move forward in creativity, in laughter, in joy, and there's a place for them. What I'm going to leave with is multiple communities around the world have different names for different things. ADHD is a different name somewhere else. One of the ones I found that was very interesting is autism. In the Maori word for autism, which I don't remember what the word is, but what it means is in your own time and space. And this goes like centuries back, because there were people in communities around the world that had ADHD, or what's called ADHD today, or autism, but it just means that those different kinds of brains had a place in society, as did neurotypical brains. So if we can consider that there's a time and place for everybody to develop and grow and live and encounter the world in the way that their brains are optimized, then I think we can have an easier, less traumatic world for people like me and anybody who's related to what I've said today.
Again, again, again. I need a spark, get me out the dark. Would you light the way? What's it gonna take to start again? I wanna start again. I need a spark, get me out the dark. Would you light the way? What's it gonna take to start again? I wanna start again. It's the final hour. Time to walk in power. Blooming like a flower. Blessings rain, they shower. I can't do this without you. Show me what I need to do. I wanna start again, shine bright again, happy heart again, fall in love again. I need a spark, get me out the dark. Would you light the way? What's it gonna take to start again? Give it up for the amazing Patricia Kihoro and my own day.